And we are back. Tell
Hey.
me, um, we're going down this social media journey, and
Mm-hmm.
naturally, we're probably a part of the first generation of socialites, in a sense. Tell us about your development and your journey with social media and what that was like in college.
Okay. So my love affair with social media actually started in middle school with Black Planet and MySpace.
Black Planet.
Black Planet.
If you don't know about Black Planet, you ain't old enough.
Right. If you did not have a Black Planet page, I can't fuck with you. Like we can't relate. So that was like where it all kind of started for me. And then, obviously AOL Messenger and all that stuff. So by the time I hit college, I had already had Facebook for several years. I was kind of late per se getting into Instagram. I didn't get an Instagram account and like really get active until like 2012, 2013. And I didn't I started my page in 2012 and I didn't really like get into it until 2016. So, but yeah, Facebook was like very instrumental, like for me throughout college, just making connections with people. I was in leadership groups on campus, the Junior Black Chamber of Commerce. And each year we went to this big like Black Student Leadership Conference, the Big 12 Conference on Black student leadership. And I stayed connected with people that I met at that conference through Facebook. So that was really what I always used it for, just making connections with people, promoting the events that we did as a part of the Junior Black Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, it's really been a big networking tool for me, I would say. That was kind of how my love affair started with social media. I would put like the typical nonsense status updates like all of us did, but I use it to stay in touch with people.
Yeah. How how have you seen it or noticed it change, if at all? Is the culture different from what it was when we were in AOL and Black Planet, or is it just more of an amplified sound of what was already there?
That's a tough question. I feel like Black Planet and MySpace, like with the whole top 8 and with like I don't remember what it was on Black Planet where you could shout people out or just doing shout outs on, people's pages. It had like that clickiness and exclusivity that Facebook kind of had in the early days. So it wasn't something that everybody had access to, like it was something that a lot of us were using, but you kind of had to have a certain skill set. You had to know a little bit about coding. We didn't know it was coding, but just how to like create the backgrounds and stuff on MySpace or not MySpace, on Black Planet and MySpace, I think, because
MySpace, you had people were doing their come ups like as
yeah,
finders to people's pages and stuff.
yep,
And
yep, yeah. So it was, I think the early adapters, if you will, it was more of like an exclusive thing, whereas now it's for everybody and it's so saturated. But those true innovators, I think, have more of a time than ever to stand out and really be appreciated because so many people are into social media now, if that makes sense. Like it's something that those of us who had that connection and really took it serious, if you will, back then, I think we take it more serious now. We're making businesses out of it. We're able to see it for more than just a way to talk to our friends. And yeah, I think that's the change, like the commercialization in people being more intentional with making it more commercial.
that what as that intention has happened, um, you started to make your own stuff. And if I'm correct, one of the first things that you did was coffee, curls, and
Coffee Curls Hustle.
Coffee Girls Hustle.
Coffee Curls Hustle. I think, yeah, so I had like little graphics where I would do like coffee curls and motherhood, coffee curls and fashion.
So
What was that?
how did that develop, and like what was what was going on for you in that moment?
Yeah, that was when I left my husband, y'all. So that was a turning point for me. I would say that was, gee, I haven't really talked about it from that lens. This is exciting. So coffee curls, and that was, so there was a night that I separated from my husband in 2017. I met him when I was 19. We got married when I was 22. We had kids. We have a son who will be 6 this year, a daughter who will be 4 in a week, actually a week from today. And then we separated in 2017, and I had a brainstorming session where I was like, okay, so I started my blog originally in 2016. So I was a wife, I was a mom, I was a Jehovah's Witness. So I was very modest, very conservative with my content and with what I was presenting. And Coffee Curls Hustle was something that I did when I was still very much in that mommy wife space, mommy wife naturalista space. And Coffee Curls and was like me kind of stepping out and like showing like a different side of myself. I think my content got a little bit edgier. I said, dear, one of my posts that I love the most from that time period, I said, dear brown girl, or dear pretty black girl, you're more than everything, or more than enough, you are everything. And it was like a note to myself, you know, like a reminder. Because like going through the phase of like being a Jehovah's Witness, you're taught to kind of disregard your racial identity and just focus on being a Christian. Like that's your identity first and foremost, is you're a follower of Jesus and a servant of Jehovah. And that's it, you know, like you shouldn't have excessive racial pride because it's divisive or whatever. So for a long time, like Black Girl Magic wasn't something that I resonated with and that I identified with, you know? So when I went through that separation, I separated from him and I left the Kingdom Hall. I stopped going to meetings, and I had this kind of reclamation of my Blackness and of my Black womanhood, you know? So that time period was just flexing what I could creatively because I couldn't afford to get a graphic designer. So I was literally just playing around on Canva and, you know, creating graphics from some branding that I had done before, messing around on coolers, putting together color palettes. And yeah, it was just me like branding myself in my new journey, the new stage of my journey.
So you actually did a quote of Coco Chanel on your timeline, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a woman who cuts her hair is about to change her life.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're telling us a little bit about that moment right now. Um, what I guess definitive change did you feel like you want? What was it that you didn't have that you were now seeking?
I didn't have an identity. I didn't have an identity of my own. Like my entire identity was made up of being a servant of a God, right? A wife and a mother. Like that was it. And those are strong things. Those are very significant things. And they are a part of my identity. But I didn't know who Keisha was, you know? So that change was figuring out who I was and what kind of person I was going to be, what I was going to create. which direction I was going to go. Was I going to be mediocre? Was I going to take the easy way and just accept this almost militaristic, military, rigid lifestyle? Or was I going to have like a creative, full, beautiful life that I always wanted, you know? I got married at a really young age because I didn't have a lot of stability growing up. Like, I didn't have a two-parent household. My dad lived across the country. I didn't meet him until I was 12. You know, I didn't develop a relationship with him really until recently. So I was so desperately seeking that in my adult life that I got married quick. I adopted this new religion. I completely changed myself. Instead of staying on the creative path, the leadership path that I was on. Remember, I told you I was in the Black student leadership group, the Junior Black Chamber of Commerce. I was an AKA, where I pledged AKA my junior year of college. Like, I was on the right path, and then I got married and I made this religious change and I stopped all of that. So the change that I was making when I cut my hair and when I put up that quote was just finding myself and standing firm in that, and yeah, figuring out what that looked like.
Talk to me about, I mean, that's such a big thing when you can really like acknowledge and sit with that. I'm sure that's we've all made many decisions in life with the information that we have. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's very admirable that you went with uh, the path that felt right for you for the moment and were able to, um, when you saw that it wasn't working for you, make a change.
Yeah.
Having the faith to at least make the leap for what you thought what was going to work for you is something that I think a lot of people struggle with in general. Uh, Talk to me a little bit about what the mental health was like and how the stress of these two very different lifestyles and dealing with
Mm.
small children. Talk about what that was, how you got through that.
My mental health, I would say, was and still is a work in progress, like so many of us. Um, at that time, I was dealing with pretty severe depression, and I think it was in postpartum depression. So my daughter was born in 2016. I was breastfeeding for the whole first year that she was born, which I don't know. When you're breastfeeding, your body is like, from what I remember my doctor telling me, your body almost still thinks you're pregnant. It's almost still acting like that for the baby. So when you stop breastfeeding, the hormones change, right? Like, there's another hormonal shift. So when I stopped breastfeeding, like, everything kind of went downhill. So 2017 was just like a crazy year, you know? And I started getting severe migraines. I was missing weeks at a time of work. And I've always been a person who is a hard worker. Like, I show up, I do what I have to do. Like, I grind, I do overtime, whatever I had to do, you know, because I struggled growing up. So as an adult, I always worked hard. And just during that time period, I didn't have it. Even for my kids, I didn't have it because I was so depressed. And I think it was a combination of the hormonal changes and just my marriage wasn't in the greatest place, which is, you know, why we split. And there was just other healing that I had to do from just my life, my childhood, you know? So I was dealing with depression, I would say, and I still have moments. Um, Mostly just deal with anxiety at this point, and the way I kind of cope with that, because I tried therapy, and I think therapy only works if you're willing to do what they tell you to do, and if you're willing to work with the therapist, right? So I
And if
think at
that
the point,
congeals with you and is able to really see you without bias.
that too, I think that's the most important part. What you said, that's the most important part, because yeah, if there isn't that synergy between you and the therapist, I think you're not gonna get a benefit. So I didn't necessarily see tangible benefits from going to therapy when I was, but I think a part of it was me not doing the work. But the way I've been able to kind of cope with it now is just writing. Like, it's kind of a full circle thing. So not writing for a publication or writing content, but just writing in my journal, like being very intentional if I'm having those moments where I'm feeling anxious or where I'm having a couple of days where I know I'm not operating like I should, just sitting down and writing down, like, okay, what's holding me back? What am I stressed out about right now? What am I freaking out about right now? What am I giving more weight to than I need to? How can I shift gears and redirect my energy? Like, just being able to write through that that's been my therapy, I would say, as of late. And that's something that I've always done. Like, over these past couple weeks, because I moved, I found journals from the whole time I was married, from even a little bit prior to that. But lately I've written the most consistently, and I think that's helped with, just depression and anxiety.
Because at least you feel like you're saying what you want to say, even
Hmm.
not
Maybe not to the person,
right.
but
That's not saying that even speaking to a person gives resolution.
yeah,
It's just speaking and acknowledging what it is.
yeah.
Being in Colorado, which is a state where cannabis is legal, how
Hmm.
that, if in any way, help with your anxiety or depression, like that?
I'm gonna be honest. Me and my business partner, we have been talking a lot about this, and I don't feel like it's a stigma, and I don't feel like it's something that, or I think we need to eliminate the stigma rather, because it's something that can be very helpful. Like, if I'm having a moment where I'm writing and I just need that push, I could spark my blunt and get through, like, it really helps me to be able to get through those moments. But um, I think you can kind of be too dependent. You can get to a place when you do have depression, or when you do deal with depression, you deal with anxiety. And especially sometimes, I don't know if like people know the differences between their weeds. I hope now you do, like with indica versus sativa. When I smoke indicas, I'm done for. Like, I'm not productive. I'm sad. I sleep the majority of the day. But when I smoke sativa, I'm able to work. I'm able to write more effectively. Um, I'm able to kind of work through things a little bit better. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
I mean, that does give some answers, and I think it's interesting. There are still definitely stigmas and miseducations, misunderstandings, um, and propaganda. I mean, let's be frank. There's been a lot of misinformation about that's been produced and given to the population for more than they've been getting correct information. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you being honest about that going into it. Um, there are also, as I've learned um, over the years, CBD products which work for a number of ailments and not just anxieties, but things like sciatica, things like psoriasis, and all kinds of other shit. So
Hmm.
there are a lot of different ways that it could be used if it were given an opportunity to be brought to the community and
Yeah.
really hard.
Have you seen the CBD tea that everybody is selling these days?
I haven't seen it.
You know, so I've used it a couple times, and I love that it's making that it's getting the recognition that it is, and that it's actually like getting people tangible results, because I think something like that taken off and having the potential to like grow the way that it is, it's gonna change the perspective. Like if you can have that CBD tea become something like a Herbalife,
Right.
or I mean, I guess even it works, but even Herbalife has been around for a
For
long
a
time.
long time. Yeah.
That
Uh,
CBD get up there like that, which I see it going that direction. Um, I think that'll also help with normalizing, cannabis and those kind of products. It's not just a stoner thing anymore. It's
right.
not just hippies who are shirking their responsibilities getting high. Like the people that I see at dispensaries, man, it is so funny. Like some of the people that you see walking into the dispensary with you, you gotta like double take, like, oh, okay, all right. You would have never expected it.
Well, it's good that we're starting to see that culture shift in some places. We just definitely want to make sure that as we push for decriminalization and legalization, that we're also cognizant and aware of um, continuing to push the message that people who were affected by the war on drugs needing uh,
Yep.
some type of uh, not amnesty, but yeah, they need amnesty and having that stuff wiped for
Yeah.
non-violent crimes, and the ability to really participate in this industry in a meaningful way before it goes inside the corporate.
I agree. So a personal experience for me, so me and my ex, we, grew up in Denver, we're born and raised here. So we met when we were in college, which was like 2009, 2010, before weed was legal. So I can remember several times, his family lives in a neighborhood that's very gentrified in Denver now. So I remember several times him and his friends always getting pulled over, and unfortunately not being responsible. They would have weed on them, and small amounts, right? Like maybe a couple grams, if that, getting tickets, going to jail, spending nights in jail, and then not being able to get apartments because they had that stuff on their record, getting turned down for some jobs. Like I saw firsthand, like when we got married, me and him trying to go and even find an apartment, getting rejected for apartments because he had a weed offense on his record. And now we can walk into the dispensary like the fucking Apple store. It's definitely something where you're like, okay, are y'all gonna do what's right? Like, and we know that they're not. So that's why people of color, absolutely, we have to make sure that we're making noise and that we're being present and that we're being represented in cannabis, in the conversations that are happening, in the changes that are being made. We absolutely have to.
And also, I want to shout out real quick my homie Brandy and Juana. They actually started a CBD company. They make CBD honey and other CBD products that are really dope. So, Juana, World of
You
you, yeah, World of Juana.
World of Iguana. Ooh, okay. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. Um, but as we're talking about like this shift in this world and making noise, um, really putting ourselves out as content creators and saying what we want to say. Earlier, you mentioned your interview with XL Cole. Um, talk about like what that moment was, and if that article or that moment gave you that next push to continue.
That was a life-changing moment. So I was on Instagram one day scrolling, and I saw a post that XO Nicole put up that they were looking for contributing writers. And this was not long after I'd cut my hair. I want to say I had just moved into my my first apartment on my own, without my ex. And I was like, let me try. Like, let me just apply and see if I can write for this publication that I love. Because I've been following XO Nicole Kane, since she was Nicole Bitchy, So I was just, it was a golden opportunity. So I put together my pitches and sent them to Sheridan. Shout out to Sheridan, the editor over there. And she wrote me back within an hour. One of the pitches that I put was, I left my hair and my husband in 2017. So just talking about my pig chop and walking away from my marriage, and like the reflections and what I hoped to kind of gain from my life after that. And it was a beautiful moment, because I had so many women reach out to me and tell me like they felt like they were having a conversation with me reading the piece, how they, could relate to my experience. They thought they were the only ones. And the most shocking thing was that people were like, they had no idea, because they never knew I was unhappy. They never knew what I was going through. They never knew the struggle, and how refreshing it was, once again, like to see that moment of honesty, and I'm grateful to XO Nicole for creating a platform for Black women to be open and transparent and tell those stories unapologetically, and to be celebrated for doing that. So yeah, that was a game changer for me. Like,
Yeah, that's dope. Shout out to
that,
XO Nicole.
yes,
I
shout out to Nicole.
Yeah, she's I actually had the chance to edit out her episode about her business. So we have her in common. Shout out to XO Nicole and Talia Brian. It's the homie too.
Yeah,
They do a lot of work together. So
yeah, she's an amazing woman. I love her platform. I'm so grateful, humbled to have been a part of it. And yeah, that was a game changer for me. Like that, after that, that later on in 2018, that was when I ended up working with Curly Girl Collective, and working on the social media team. I was an intern on the social media team, or it was 5 of us interns. We created all the Instagram content, all the Facebook content, the ads for the brand partners. And I actually got to go to New York and got to be there and I got to meet Sheila Marie, Broderick Hunter. It was amazing. It was like such an amazing experience. And I think that was when I knew, like, that was when I was solid within myself. Like, I'm really doing this shit. Like, I've made some solid connections. Like, I know some people. I've done some significant work. Like, I don't know. It felt good. It was a good moment. It was a good moment.
that's what's up. So let's talk about something a little uncomfortable.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's talk about the ugly phase.
Ugly phase.
You know, when your hair is growing and it's like not long enough to drop, but not short enough, not short
Right.
enough to do the thing. I know. Look, this has been through it, and as I appreciate the Black woman journey, the Black male hair journey is rough, just as rough. So let's talk about like going through, and now that you're this voice, going through these different phases with your hair and hair acceptance, and what is
Yeah.
writing about that and being so transparent with
Y'all, excuse me. uh, Goodness gracious. Okay. So you said let's talk about the the phases of my hair journey. Man, my people. Okay, am I okay? Is my makeup okay? Because don't definitely just like wiped my eye.
No, you're fine. You're not running nothing.
Okay, good. Anyways, back to our programming. So, um, Dan, I've gone through some stages with my hair. Like, oh my God, looking over my Instagram, I'm like, I had some moments. I think after I cut my hair, it was just like I told myself, you're gonna get comfortable being ugly, feeling a little bit ugly, if that's what it means at the moment. Like if that's what you look in the mirror and see, be okay with that and see how you can change it. Change your perspective, be okay enough with yourself that you can stand and be confident with no hair on your head and with all of the in-between phases without it necessarily being a perfect twist out or whatever, you know? And then when I wasn't comfortable with it, I was like, I'm gonna try a wig. Why not? Let me just step outside of my comfort zone. Let me try a wig. And I went through a stage where I was wearing wigs every day for like 2 months. And some girls, I know it's a whole lifestyle. Wigs are a whole lifestyle. So for me, I allowed myself to transition and to accept every part of that transition and to not be harsh with myself, to not be judgmental of myself, and to try to be kinder to myself, like we were talking about earlier. To be kinder through those transitions, to not be so critical if my hair didn't come out perfect that day or whatever. And I don't know, I think it was just the confidence that I felt, because like when I look back at the pictures now, I cringe a little. I'm looking at my friends like, y'all let me walk out the house like that, like y'all were letting me walk around like that looking crazy. But I realized I was hella confident, like everybody would say I had the juice at that time.
Nobody take my pride. Can't nobody hold me down. Oh no, I got to keep on moving.
Yes, that I so confident. I was so confident at that time. And I think I still am now. It's more, I think it's more valid now. But yeah, and I'm in that in between stage now. Like I have a little bit of length. I could do a little bit more with it, but I'm in that really awkward like teenage length stage right now again. And I bought a wig, I bought a dramatic ass pink wig that I'm about to put on, and I got some braiding hair, so I'm gonna throw some twists in if I need to. Like I'm okay with it, and I'm okay with maybe I might have a day like this where my hair is standing all over my head, but I'm okay with it because I'm accepting my beauty in all of its phases. I had this guy, so little tangent, but I was on Facebook the other day, Facebook Live with my kids. This nigga had the nerve to jump in my comments talking about that hair though. And at first I thought it was a compliment because that could be like that hair though, it's all about inflection, right? So I was like, what do you mean? Because me and my daughter, like both of our hair was like looking a little crazy on the video. Right. So he was like, the kids will be kids. I'm talking about your hair. And I was like, huh. So I didn't respond in the comment. So I was like, let me just take this to the DMs in case the nigga steps out of line. Just as I suspected. So I said, so what's wrong with my hair? And he was like, you just need to make sure that you comb your hair before you go on live.
Oh, wow.
Like, first of all, sir, do I know you like that? Like, are you in my friend group? Like, do you even have my personal phone number? Like, we've had a few interactions, but I put up a post on my page the other day. Like, I'm trying to find the source of the audacity that these niggas are not running out of. Like, they always have the audacity. But had I not been so confident in myself and once again in my hair journey and in whatever phases I'm in, that could have really fucked me up. Like I could have been really affected by that, hurt by him feeling like he had the right to do that, you know? So yeah, I think I've just been trying to be unapologetic about who I am and like all of these stages, and helping other women to do the same thing. Like if I can do it on my platform, and it's a humble little platform, but 6,000 people is a lot. If I could go on there and have my hair looking a little bit crazy, then shit. So can you, you know, go out and do your thing. Like be confident in yourself. So
Which is
that's,
worse when that type of comment comes from people you know or from strangers. Like,
you said first.
yeah, like, where did you have any of those type of conversations with people around you, like when you went natural or
When
anytime?
I natural, yes. So back in 2010, like the first time, my mom and my grandmother, oh, I think it's worse when it's somebody that you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's worse when it's somebody that you know, because it's like, damn, like you're supposed to love me. And it's ironic because the people that we know and love are the people that we treat the worst, right? Like people that we're willing to curse out because we know that they have to love us. Those are the people that we show our ugly side to. Our spouses see the worst of us and the best of us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's, while it's understandable for your people that are closest to you, it does feel worse coming from people that are close to me. And like with that guy, it was weird because he's like literally on the fence. Like we know each other in person. We've met before. We've hung out a few times in mixed company, you know, but we're not personal friends. Like I would never jump into his inbox and be like, bro, why you wear that jacket? Like that shit's played out, you know, because I don't know him like that. So for him to feel comfortable enough to jump into my DMs, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Especially, again, as I definitely know I'm a jokester, so I'll hop in and I'll say something sort of crazy, but I know I'm like, if you've heard me talk, you can tell when I'm being jokey, I think, versus when I'm being direct or formal, like in conversation. So
Yeah.
I try to be cognizant of that sort of thing. But same as you, I've had family members or people, I post something I'm working on, or hey, ask questions, like that kind of thing. And they'll send a comment like, when are you gonna get your hair done or get your hair cut? You look homeless or some shit like that. And I'm like, for all the other things that I'm doing, that
Mm-hmm.
that's what you choose to focus on.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's interesting, to hear that is something that doesn't just happen to one person. It's all over the country. It's from people you know. It's from people you don't know, and we have to really change that mindset of that culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially as Black people, like we have to understand that we are a spectrum of people, right? Like we're not just one size fits all. Not every Black man is going to be clean cut with um what, a fade or whatever.
Well,
That's not a guy. Every guy's not going to get locks. Like we have to accept our individuality. Like that's what makes us beautiful. And so many, that's what's so frustrating about so many Black folks. Like we want to accept it, but we don't even accept ourselves and each other, you know?
we expect everyone else to understand.
Mm-hmm. Gotta lead by.
And speaking of leading by example, you started working with a museum, a Black Girl Museum. Tell us about how that got started.
Yes, so I am the co-creator of the Museum for Black Girls. My best friend and business partner, Charlie B. Shout out to Charlie B. She is a Denver-based photographer and set curator, event curator. We connected a few years ago for Black Creatives Week in our media company. And every year for her birthday, she does some kind of project to celebrate Black women. And last year it was a calendar, or excuse me, not last year. So for 2018 going into 2019, it was a calendar. So then for last year, she wanted to do a gallery, but she wanted it to be very interactive, and came up with this idea to do like a dedication to the experiences and memories that we have as Black women. So the Museum for Black Girls concept was born. She created a Facebook event and kind of kept it low key. And she came to me one day and she was like, Keisha, the event that I created has reached like 1,000 people on Facebook. Like, so the impressions were like at 1,000. And we were just like, okay, so we gotta do it. Like, we gotta find a location, blah, blah, blah. So we ended up taking over this boutique in November. So we have a good friend, Hermone. She owned this boutique, Elevate Fashion and Lifestyle. We had done several events with her already in that space. And she was in a place where she wanted to transition kind of out of it. So she let us take it over mid-November. And it just organically worked out that we're like, we're just going to turn the boutique into the museum. So, yeah. The Museum for Black Girls was born. We ran the boutique, just kept selling the clothes for the rest of November. And then probably like the second week in December, we cleared out all of the clothes, sat there, stared at empty walls. Charlie was like really thinking, you know, of how she was going to bring the vision to life. We had brainstorming sessions and just kind of talked about the things that resonated with us. So I came up with the idea of doing the Blue Magic exhibit, which was like kind of show a juxtaposition of like where we started with Blue Magic Grease. It's like how glamorous we are now and like refined. And not saying that Blue Magic Grease isn't refined, but we've evolved.
Magic was the shit. I used a lot of that growing up.
Back
keep my curls right.
Right.
A little water and some Blue Magic went a long way.
So we had to pay homage. We had to pay homage to that. So we created that exhibit, and yeah, we launched. We shot a commercial, like, or not a commercial. Yeah, like a little preview commercial for it. We turned the boutique into like a little video set. It was amazing. Like it was just an amazing project. Just seeing our creativity, like, and the people that came in and helped us bring it to life, like her aunt, Aunt Vaughn, she's our director of ops. She came in and like took the visions that we had, like these exhibits that we had set up, and just did little touches, did little staging elements that took it to the next level and made it that much more beautiful. And yeah, our opening night was sold out. We probably had like, I want to say 70 people in this tiny boutique. It was like a packed house, and it was truly a beautiful experience. And we had like an influx of people. And a couple nights after we opened, we had a lady that came in that was celebrating her birthday. And I was so like humbled. I'm like, you wanted to celebrate your 40th birthday, like this milestone in this space that we created, you know? And I was like, can I record you? Like, can I just get a testimonial from you? Like, I just want to know what made you make this decision. So we got a bunch of testimonials. Like, just after that, I started asking every person that came in, like, how do you define Black girl magic? And how does this space resonate with you? And it gives me the chills thinking about it. Like, the way that people would just like exhale when they came in the space, and the way they would linger, and the conversations that we had, the photos that people took, I can smell it because we had this Palo Santo that we burned every day when we went in there. It was just such a beautiful time and such a beautiful space. And we have a house now. We ended up getting in a situation where we were able to move it to a house in Park Hill, which is a historic neighborhood in Denver. That situation is a little stressful. It's a whole nother beast from the boutique. And I'm learning a lot. We're learning a lot about having an actual business and like brick and mortar and, you know, the logistics of that. And it's an ongoing project. It went from just being a one-off, you know, gallery experience to being, it's our baby. Like it's a whole nother, literally a whole nother business. We have it filed with the state. Like,
Nice. That's
yeah.
something to have such a great reception at your first event. I mean, that's such a nerve-wracking, scary thing as an artist when you put yourself out there. I've definitely shot concerts and been to concerts and stuff where, you know, nobody's there, you're performing in empty places, and you know, to have that type of reception from the community is got to be like heartwarming.
Yeah.
What are some of the lessons you've had to learn as you've uh, built this business that sort of wasn't even an intentional business? Like, what, I know there had to been landmines and pitfalls that you were like, shh, you know, you can't plan for, you don't know.
Man. I don't even know where to start. there's so much that this museum has taught me as an entrepreneur. I will say that this project has been, it was the make or break moment for me. Like when we took over the boutique and when even the night of the opening of the museum, we were literally working past the time that we should have opened the doors. So the doors, I think we said we're going to open at 6. We didn't open the doors until like 6:30, maybe 40. Not proud of that, but like it was just such a nerve-wracking experience. So I learned a lot about preparation and about foundation. Like, you can't skip steps, right? Like, as visionaries, as artists, as creatives, we see this beautiful idea, we see this concept, right? And we see the main components: buy the material, get the venue, get it set up, blah, blah, blah. But the things that you don't account for, what if you don't have enough material? What if people don't show up on time? What if the space is overcrowded? What if shit doesn't stick to the wall? What if your print doesn't arrive on time? What if, like, there's so many contingencies, you know? And if you don't have like a proper checklist, a proper game plan to begin with, like if you're kind of winging it to begin with, then it makes it that much harder when one little thing goes wrong, you know? So I think the museum definitely taught me a lot about just building the foundation and making sure that what you're doing, you're passionate about, and using that as your motivation, using that as your reminder to keep going. We've been stagnant with the museum. I'm not going to lie, like over these past couple of weeks because of quarantine, we had events planned for the whole month of March that we were planning to actually put money into the museum. Because after that initial first month, it wasn't making us any money. Like, we made like over $5,000 in ticket sales, but that was, again, for 1 month, right? And it was a novelty. It was something that people knew was going to come to an end. How do you keep that going? How do you keep that excitement going? How do you get people to contribute to it? It's stuff that can happen. It's stuff that can be done, but it's not anything that we ever thought about because it was only supposed to be a one-night thing. It was only supposed to be a two-week thing, if that, you know? And we just kept on extending it because of the demand, which is a beautiful problem to have. But now we're having to kind of pause and then build that foundation so that we can really answer the need and, you know, give people what they're asking for.
What type of artist would you like to have? Maybe approach you or that you maybe would look for the gallery.
I would just say artists that celebrate Black women, right? Like, we don't want the slave stories. We don't want the struggle story. We don't want that. Like, it's a, in the space, in the way that we had in the boutique, we had flowers hanging from the ceiling. So like when you walk in, you just saw roses, pink roses just hanging. So it's a very like bright, beautiful space, you know? So artists that can complement that, I
Nice.
was, and that celebrate Black women. Aside from that, it's no limit. I mean, we prefer the exhibits to be interactive.
Okay.
We want them to be interactive. So like one of the favorite exhibits that we have is Grandma's Kitchen, or Grandma's Salon. And we have like an actual stove and some antique Marcells and press and combs. And you can like, it's like the selfie museum, but for Black girls. So you can like take pictures with your hot comb. So we want to create more experiences like that. Like we just want artists that can create more experiences like
Nice.
that. Mm-hmm.
Well, I can definitely see us making a collaboration there. To imagine.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely. Your background there, I love your work. I really do.
thinking maybe Black girls high in the sky.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, you heard it here first. We're gonna make that shake.
You gotta
Um,
make, because the museum is gonna go on tour. That's another component. So we're
no,
trying to figure out how to make it traveling, how to, make one of the exhibits traveling, and then partner with gallery spaces or whatever the case is in other cities. So
okay.
Atlanta is definitely on the list. I
Oh,
love some Atlanta.
and there's such a great community here. Definitely, locations and spots and people that would totally embrace that. So, as we started to talk about that and the world kind of puts us in a space where we can start moving again, that's something we'll definitely help you put together on this end.
Yay!
Uh, so tell me a little bit about um, your other business because you mentioned a little bit earlier you do a like creative weekend.
Black Creatives
Black
Weekend.
creative weekend. Tell me about that.
Yes. So that is what me and Charlie originally came together for. So we have a friend, shout out to Rob, who thought that we would just be amazing to work together. Because we're both creative. She's a photographer, I'm a writer. We just had a lot of synergy in like the things that we were trying to do. So he introduced us, and I ended up doing. I was doing an interview with a Black journalist here in Colorado, just about my experience trying to break out as an influencer, being a Black woman, and like you know, kind of the struggles and whatnot that we dealt with. And it was a group of us, and we had a shitty reception at the place that we went to do the photo shoot. It was like this snooty poo restaurant in a gentrified part of Denver, and they pretty much kicked us out. And we had like this whole conversation about our experience and just about the lack of representation here in Denver, as Black creatives. But in that conversation, it was about Black influencers, Black models, Black women in fashion more so. So I brought that idea to Charlie. I was like, yo, like we should do a Black Fashion Week. Like we should just put that on. Like, why not? Like they're not gonna celebrate us, they're not gonna recognize us. So let's do it. And she's like, I love that idea, but it's kind of limiting. And there's not like that many Black designers necessarily in Denver. So she was like, let's make it Black Creatives Week. And okay, yeah, let's do it. We can have bloggers, photographers, I don't know, any creative discipline, visual artists, actors, actresses, whatever. So the idea was kind of born from that. We were going to do like a week-long experience of programming. That was the original vision.
Ambitious.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of told us like, a week? Like, that's a bit much, blah, blah, blah. So gradually over time, we came to our senses and we're like, okay, Black Creatives Weekend. That's what we'll do. So we ended up applying for this grant for it with the city of Denver, the Cultural Arts and Partners, Cultural Arts Programming Grant. I am completely butchering that shit. I'll tell you later.
It's right here in the bottom below.
It'll be there, yeah. But we ended up getting a partnership with them. So we applied for it and got the partnership. So we got this venue, $30,000 venue, basically, for 3 days of programming. And we had it set for this upcoming June 12th through the 14th. But then a little lady named Rona came to town. So
not with the shits.
Rona not with the shits. So our idea of having a conference of 500 people, you know, is going to be put on pause. But in the midst of us planning, so this planning originally started in 2018, right? So in 2019 was when, January of 19 was when we were like, okay, we're doing this. Like, we are going to make this happen in 2020, whatever. So when we made that decision, we were like, we need people to know who we are in order for them to even want to come to our conference. So we started doing pop-up events. And then I was like, well, I've always loved journalism. I've always loved like interviewing people, like, you know, showing up at places, doing footage, you know, capturing the scene. So I was like, well, why don't we pitch to do media coverage on behalf of Black Creatives Weekend, you know, like pitch to different events. So my second year going to Curlfest, I actually went with like a media pass under Black Creatives Weekend. So that's when we were like, let's just make it a media company. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we've done like pop-up events. We've had game nights. We did a Mother's Day brunch in partnership with Black Moms Blog. We did that last year. It was amazing. It was a sold out event. We did a couple of game nights. We did a watch party for Solange's visual album. Yeah, so it's just the whole purpose of Black Creatives Weekend is like to create spaces and content that elevate Black culture, creativity, teach Black creatives how to develop wealth. And it's literally lessons that we're learning ourselves, you know? So when I started like my content journey or whatever and wanted to create courses, one of the points that somebody made was when you're learning something, like you are going to learn more from your classmate that's sitting next to you that may have a little bit more advanced understanding than you can sometimes from the professor, because the professor isn't in your same headspace. Like they're the expert, like they're thinking of it as somebody who's so advanced in that field, whereas your classmate, they may have a better grasp of it so they can explain it to you better, but they're not necessarily at that expert level. So that's how I see us with Black Creatives Weekend. Like we're right there in the trenches doing it, and we're learning, and we're fast learners. Like me and my business partner are both fast learners. So we're like, as we get this information, we can figure out a way to explain it to you. So maybe you can learn the lesson a little bit faster than we do. Or maybe a new entrepreneur that's coming out, they'll see our content on Black Creatives Weekend and, like I said, avoid those pitfalls, learn those lessons faster than we did.
And that's such a great thing, because you have so many people who have this crabs in the bucket mentality of not wanting to share their discoveries, the things that help them to grow and to make their business work. They feel like there can only be them, or that they're competing with everyone else. And, be more open and inclusive. You know, we have to learn that there's enough room for everyone. So, in the process of you now, you know, taking this media company and doing all these great events and all these things that you've done, started to monetize your influence. So how can others monetize their influence with you?
Well, as of right, that's a good question. So there's a couple of different ways. I have my new series. So monetize your influence originally came about as a course that I was going to do, like just modules. So people could purchase the course and go through those modules, typical workshop stuff, which I still may revisit, but it wasn't a well fleshed out idea, you know? So I created all these visuals, did an amazing website. Shout out to Drag and Drop Squarespace, making me feel like I'm actually doing some shit. But yeah, so I did all of that. And then I was like, okay, let me take this principle. And that's kind of where, when I was talking about doing the video testimonials for the museum, that was a game changer for me. Like, that was a content strategy that I thought about. Like, this is something that I genuinely want to know. Like, I want to know how these women feel, and so do other people, right? And then if other people feel that way, they're like, oh, well, I want to come too, so that I can get that feeling, so that I can experience that. So that was how we were kind of able to take the influence that we had created in that space, and even just through us as the women that we are, with Charlie having a reputation for celebrating Black women, with me having a reputation for creating events that celebrate Black people, for creating content that celebrates self-love, you know, within myself. People knew that if we put something together, it was going to be something valuable. So they were willing to pay their $25 or $40 or whatever for their ticket to come out, you know? So that was my first like object lesson of how to monetize your influence. Like, just kind of me taking my skill set and applying that with my social media strategy for the museum. And that kind of morphed into this moment of pivoting right now because of quarantine. So we had all these things that we were going to do. We had all of these ideas for the physical space, but I was like, I also have a pretty impressive network that I've built over the past couple of years. So why not take my own object lesson with the museum and also speak to other people, get their experiences, some people that my audience wants to hear from as well, and ask them these questions. How did you monetize your influence? And that's where that interview series came from, where we connected.
Right.
So, and Alex was, so we reached out to her for Black Creatives Weekend, and she responded and asked us about a budget and all of that. So I feel like she was going to come to that. And then we had to pivot, you know, with coronavirus. And we had reached out for her to come, because we did like a virtual summit for Black Creatives Weekend. So we did like a Sunday fun day type thing. So we had reached out to her, that, and she didn't respond. So Charlie was like, why don't you hit her up about monetize your influence? So I was like, okay, why not? Let me just shoot my shot. So I did. She responded right away. It was like, I would love to. And she was one of the first people that said yes. So that yes emboldened me to write out a whole dream list of people that I wanted to invite. And I created a script. I guess I probably shouldn't be sharing my secrets. Whatever. I created my little script, and I just sent the message out. I just kept sending it out to people, and I got a bunch of yeses. And to date, I've had a month of interviews. I've had a month's recommend. There's only one day that I didn't have a guest, and I just did a workshop. So I went on and I talked about 3 ways, 3 ways that I've monetized my influence in my experience. So,
I mean, but that's so major, because I mean, most people would be, I mean, that's intimidating to even decide to reach out and push yourself out with a new product. You know, it's not developed. It's not something that you had kind of worked on in workshop. You just jump right in. That's a little bit of what happened with this podcast. So I understand that, but actually I'd had this concept before, so I didn't have the ability at that moment to make it. And Now with the world being stopped, I said, yo, let me take that idea and condense it and do it in this podcast format instead of in like a full show format. So I think it's impressive and important that we just let people know that it's okay to just start. It doesn't have to be perfect or this
Yep.
polished product at the beginning. It's important that you just start and then that you stick with it.
Yeah.
Because if you hadn't started and gotten that first one yes, which, you know, thankfully you had already had a relationship and she was available and open to it, but you may not always get that first yes on the first try. But when you get that first yes, you know, hearing that it emboldened you and, you know, 29 or so other people said yes,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Amazing.
what does that do for someone's self-esteem who says, oh my God, no one cares. No one would this. Now that you see that, you can just jump out, you can just try. And every day won't go the way you expect it to.
Yeah.
You will find challenges and pitfalls for sure. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But continuing to move forward will give you an opportunity to do things that you don't expect and maybe build relationships that you wouldn't have otherwise. That'll put you somewhere much further and in a much better place than you would have been.
Yeah. The connections that I've made, like, just because of this series. Like, one of the people that I interviewed, we met in college. Me and his name is Jasper. We met 10 years ago in college. He was there for summer break, and we stayed connected on Facebook, but we were never like, we never,
Yeah.
yeah, we were just friends. So he saw what I was doing with my content. Like, you think people aren't watching, you think people don't see because they may not like your post or whatever. But he saw what I was doing and he reached out to me and he was like, I would love to be on your show. And he gave some extremely valuable insight for influencers, because he works on the other side. He's the person who works with the influencers. So it was scary, and I think it's a good point of like stepping out there and doing it. And I didn't workshop it, but I was systematic. I had a system.
Mm-hmm.
I had a system, and I had a system because it was trial and error, right? Like, we all have a process in some, like, if you're a creative, you probably got like 50, 11 notebooks somewhere. In those notebooks, you have a process, right? So that means it's up here. So when you sit down and you find that thing that you really want to do, that really sparks that fire in you, it's gonna flow, And I think that's why it's so important to just do it.
Mm.
That's why it's so important, and it's about being open and receptive too. Like, sometimes you'll have that thing that you're supposed to do. So like with us with the museum, I 100% feel like that's something that we were supposed to do, but I also feel like we were not as organized as we could have been. And then, with full transparency, for the sake of full transparency, we were hella behind schedule for Black Creatives Weekend this year. It getting postponed a year is a blessing, to be honest. It's a blessing. We would have made it. It would have been an amazing conference regardless. But it's going to be even better now that we have that time to kind of take a pause. So I think, yes, it is important to just do it. And as you're just doing it, make sure that you're listening, right? You're listening to that inner voice. You're writing stuff down. You're keeping track of what you're doing. So you might be winging it the first time, but okay, go back and write down the steps that you took. That way you can replicate that process next time and make it more seamless. If you need to delegate something, you have your process already written out. You already have it mapped out. It's easier to ask for the help because you know what you need somebody to help you with. So yes, just do it, but be intentional when you just do it and document it, write everything down, get a process so that way you're not consistently just doing it, because you do burn out that way. That's one thing I will say. I don't want to go too much on that, but I think you have to just do it, but it always feels good having a plan too.
Mm-hmm. Just do it till you're satisfied, but you gotta have a plan, and
Yeah,
be aware that the plan can and will and definitely need to change, because what worked
absolutely.
in the beginning may or may not work in the middle. Um, but it's important to plan all the way to the end so that you're ready, like you were saying, for those moments when things don't go right, so that you're not so thrown for a loop that you can't adjust.
Yes. Yep.
Well, this has been like so fun. Tell the people where, how, and everything that they can do to get in contact with you, because they're definitely going to want to after hearing this.
Yes, thank you. I've had an amazing time. Thank you so much for having me. You guys can stay connected with me at Keisha Marie Co. So that's me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you search Keisha Marie Co. So it's Keisha and then Marie Co. People think I say Cole, Keisha Marie Cole. But yeah, and then monetize your influence. So podcast coming soon.
Hey,
A podcast coming soon. Black Creatives Weekend. That's also spelled how it sounds, at Black Creatives Weekend. We're going to continue figuring out how these virtual experiences are going to look. I have a Sunday Fun Day idea that I'm trying to pull together. We were going to do trap karaoke. So I want to try to do some kind of take on trap karaoke for Sunday Fun Day. So
Trapioki.
karaoke. Ooh, I like that.
Hell yeah, I got these isms.
I love that. So you're going to be in there if we do it. I want to do it on Zoom though.
Let's go.
So I love Instagram, but I want to like try to set it up on Zoom because I have a DJ that I want to have like spinning the whole time. And I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun. A virtual trap karaoke. Um, Black Creatives Weekend and then the Museum for Black Girls. We still have that physical space. So we were thinking about shooting some content over there. So just stay connected to all the channels. There'll be many amazing things. It's always going to be magical Black women celebrating Black culture, Black creativity, all that.
Black, as Issa Rae say.
Yes, rooting for everybody Black, everything Black. As Salon says, these are Black-owned things.
Support Black-owned businesses. Make sure if you enjoyed the content, you leave us some comments, like, subscribe. WIGI podcast everywhere, Spotify, be on Apple Music soon. You can also, if you like any of the art, artofskywin.com, Art of Skywin on Instagram as well. And thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back very, very soon. And don't think this is the last time you'll be seeing Keisha, because we've got other things planned for you. Don't we?
I can't wait. Thank you.